What's up, Internet? You're tuned in episode 76 of Nintendo Noise, Flipscreen Games' weekly Nintendo podcast. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined today by my very good friends and co-hosts, Mr. Stephen Radford.
Hello, hello.
And Mr. Max Wright.
Ahoy, boys.
Ooh, I like that. Ahoy, boys. Are we the Ahoy boys? Is that Steve and I? Or is that...
You guys just the boys. I'm just saying ahoy. You know, this is something I decided on last week during the Steam Deck podcast. I'm now going to have it as my every episode intro. I was waiting to find the right one. Yeah, I stole Steve's, and then I realized I had to have my own.
Hello, and I was think you need to come with your own.
I also, in a lost section of of a previous podcast, I stole Pete's entire intro, and Steve called me out on it, but luckily it wasn't recording anyway, so...
Hey, that's fine. You can steal my intro. I wrote it for a reason. You know, orient the kids in the show, you know? They know the intro. So anyway, I'm back, folks, and I'm glad because it's a good weekend. We got a new trailer for the Mario movie. We've got rumors of Advance Wars possibly rearing its head yet again. And then, of course, we have the bombshell announcement today that Nintendo, as well as PlayStation and Xbox, will not be attending E3. So we're going to talk about all that and much, much more on this week's episode of Nintendo Noise. Let's jump into the Mario trailer discussion. So we got, and unfortunately, kids, I'm not going to be able to show you the trailer because every time we do, they come with those copyright strikes. So we're just gonna let that one sit.
We could act it out.
Okay, all right. Let's do it. Dramatic recreation.
Who's Mario? Who's Donkey Kong? And who's Toad?
Pete thinks he's the main character of the world, so he'll be Mario.
I'm also the only Italian American on this podcast, so I think I'm the obvious choice.
That doesn't matter because Chris Pratt's voicing him. So apparently you can be anything to play Mario.
It's deeply
Steve,
offensive.
I really see you in the role of Toad.
Yeah,
Toad is my favorite character. Yeah.
I feel like I have the general size and aura to be Donkey Kong. I think that if anyone had to be him, I think me lumbering around, doing a normal voice, not doing a donkey voice, a monkey
that
voice.
big DK energy.
Can you?
Yeah.
Can you do the?
Isn't that Scooby Doo?
Yeah, it sounded more like Scooby Doo or like Tim Allen when I did it. That was not really Donkey Kong.
I want Home Improvement.
I'll tell you what. Home Improvement would have been an 11 times better show if it starred Donkey Kong. Let's just leave it at that. But this trailer was interesting. It wasn't entirely new footage. Like, it was kind of a longer, extended look at that, fight between Mario and DK in that, like, big arena and everything.
Say what it is. Just say what it is.
It's Smash. It's Smash. The name of the trailer is Smash. Like, it's straight up a Smash reference.
They even have like power-ups in the arena, I guess.
Sure.
He picks up
the
cat power-up.
Mario.
Oh, was it Tanuki? I thought it was
No,
Cat
it was
Mario.
the cat.
Oh, it was Cat. Yeah, it was Cat. You're right. Yeah.
I think we already knew Tanuki Mario was in it, right? He'd already done the whole flying around in one of the old trailers.
I think we've seen footage of that.
And I think we've seen the fire one as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I mean, they can't not do fire.
Yeah.
We saw Peach with the fire flower too, I think. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I like it, and I like the fact that they've incorporated Smash into the world, like the world of the movie, in a way that kind of makes sense. Like, it is like a spectator sport where everyone's coming along to see if Mario's gonna win or if Donkey Kong's gonna win.
I really liked the little nod in the beginning where everyone's like, Mario. It's like the the Smash audience chanting whenever you're on a roll.
I kind of wish they'd saved Smash for like 4 movies down the line when we've had the Zelda movie, we've had the Metroid movie, and then they all come together for the Smash Brothers movie. Smash Assemble.
You have the end of
it does make you wonder, like,
you have like a post credits like Marvel scene, and it's like Master Hand off in the distance, and you're like, oh no, like.
Or Kirby's like just as the master of Smash knocking around. I do wonder, like, if they were to do a sequel, they're sort of like using up a lot of the big spin-offs at the moment. Are they, I don't know if the next one's just going to purely be tennis and like bowling.
I feel
all
like
this opens up, like you said, it opens up the possibility of like a collaboration, like
sure,
and
cross
between worlds.
I kind of get the impression that a lot of this stuff is going to be like it's gonna be like smaller beats, right? Like it's like this movie isn't gonna be about a Smash tournament. That's like likely how they're gonna meet Donkey Kong and he'll join the team, right? Like there's gonna be like there's the bit where we've seen there's gonna be a Mario Kart race. I imagine that will be a set piece in the movie, right? But it's not like the movie is like about those things, right? So like I get what you mean in terms of like it feels like they're playing a lot of cards, But I also guess like it's one of those things where it's like, do you want to save a ton of stuff for a sequel that you don't necessarily know is going to happen?
That's
or
true.
do you want to like swing for the fences and then if it's good, be like, all right, well, cool. There's about 50 other Mario games we never even, there's so many obscure Mario characters that like, like are not going to show up in this
Bring
movie.
in the Shy Guys. Bring in the Shy Guys. What an ending it would be. What a post-credit scene it would be if Mario like goes to like his post box and he finds the Smash letter in the invitation.
Yes.
Oh, hot.
Yo, I mean, if they want to build to a Smash thing, like that would be really cool. Like I think that could work. But there's like a lot of like interesting things I think you could do. Like you could always do like the Super Mario Brothers 2 thing and like do like a like kind of like a separate world from the Mushroom Kingdom, and maybe it's not a dream, right? But like you could bring in.
And they just call it Doki Doki Panic, and it's just a completely different thing.
Yeah, but I mean, like there's like Wart from that game that you could bring in, and like Max had like the Shy Guys, and like a lot of those kinds of things that like I mean, sure they were originally Doki Doki Panic, but they're Mario stuff now. Like I feel like it would be interesting to kind of like. Or like maybe you lean into like Mario Land stuff. Maybe you like go to Galaxy and you introduce Rosalina. Like there are a lot of other things you could do, even if they're like they play a lot of the Mushroom Kingdom cards.
But I kind of feel like there's all of these other worlds that they opened up in other games. Like we could see like a Mario Galaxy. We could see like some of the levels from Mario Odyssey, and just like it doesn't have to all be focused in the Mushroom Kingdom. You could explore beyond that, like. Although, oh no, Bowser's kidnapped Peach and he's taken her somewhere. Like, always happens.
You just go Sunshine. You go straight to Sunshine and you have a holiday themed.
Delphino.
Well, and I mean, shoot, right? Like, we didn't,
Delphino.
like Super Mario World, right? Like, we didn't even touch on that. Like, go Dinosaur Island, introduce Yoshi, right? Like, I think for as many things as they are, like, using here, or Easter egging at least, like, there are a lot of stuff, too, that it's like, all right, like, there's still a lot of room to grow.
Yoshi not in this movie?
Not
I think there's a
knowledge.
lot of Yoshis. You see a lot of Yoshis at one point. Or
But
Yoshis,
I don't think there's like a Yoshi.
The one.
Yeah, who's like part of the crew. Like we might see some Yoshi, but I don't think they're like
he's in the movie.
Mario,
Yeah, he's in the
not in the movie. What'd you say?
No, he
Steve?
is. He is.
He is. Okay.
Yoshi is in the movie, yeah.
Who's he voiced by? Does it say?
There's no voice. It's
Okay.
like he's just in the background.
So, yeah.
Like one of the frames. So there may be a canonical Yoshi, but it could just be like there are many Toads, so there are many Yoshis,
Right.
that kind of thing. I don't know how they're gonna.
That's canonically true, right? But there's like
because Mario kills
Yoshi.
a bunch of them.
Yeah, Mario kills like a million of them in Super Mario World. So our land. No, World. I was right. So yeah,
And it makes him throw up in Mario Sunshine.
Well, I found out
disgusting.
recently. Did you know this? All the
That's the
Yoshis
noise.
in Sunshine are not actually real. That's why when you jump in the water, they disappear. They're paintings.
No, you're joking.
No, that's.
That
But
does
I
make
can
sense.
climb on them and like force the bile out of their stomach.
Well, yeah.
Between the...
Oh,
Ugh.
man.
It's just what I
You're
heard.
ruining
It's just
it.
what I heard.
What about the voice then? Let's talk about the voice. As in Donkey Kong's voice. let's
It's
say.
Seth Rogen.
I gotta be honest with you.
Yeah.
I am really tired of this as a talking point. Like, and it's like fine, right? Like, if you hear those voices and you don't think they work or they match or whatever, like that's a completely fine opinion to have. But at this point, I'm not interested in talking about it anymore. Like, I'm at the point where like the fact that anytime this movie comes up in conversation, people are like, "Oh, Chris Pratt," it's just like I'm bored by that talking point at this point. So like, the movie's coming out in April. At this point, like I'm gonna see it and I'm gonna judge it based on its merits at that point, right? And like the fact that they got celebrities to do the voices of the characters and that there are several characters who are just straight up a famous person's voice, it's like you're going to be able to accept that or you're not. And I think like
people accepted it, I think, with Detective Pikachu. So I don't know why they struggle a lot with Mario.
yeah,
Like Mario, I can understand because
he has a voice.
It's been the iconic Mario voice for decades. But Donkey Kong, I don't really associate a voice with him other than one that sounds like Scooby Doo now.
And
so I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, when I think about it, right, the only time I've ever heard Donkey Kong talk in anything where he actually had a voice was there was like a short-lived animated show in the 90s, early aughts.
Yeah.
We still haven't done a watch along of. Yeah,
We really should. And his voice is like not that dissimilar from a Seth Rogen. Like he just straight up sounds like a bro-y dude, you know? And it's like, okay, you know, like I don't know. Like Mario's voice was Captain Lou Albano and shit on TV, right? Like this has happened before. We've had other people voice these characters, and like, you know, I don't know. Like you're either going to be able to get down with it or not. And like I'm tired of judging a movie based on like 30-second clips of it, right? Like,
oh yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I judged The Last of Us before it came out, and that's turned out to be a piece of absolute phenomenal TV. So
yeah, it's just like just watch it, right? Or don't. If you're not interested, if you don't care, fine. Just like shut up about it. You know, like it's not. You don't need to like waste your time talking about a movie that is made for like children, right? Like we're not the target audience for this movie. If we enjoy it, great, right? Like, but that's not the point.
I promise you, I'm gonna watch it, homie. I promise.
yeah, we're the
We're gonna see
target
it.
audience for the 18 rated Metroid movie that's coming out next year.
Mhm.
God, if only.
Steve, it comes out in April, right?
It does, April 7th. Yeah.
Let's
Metroid
say
movie?
I
Great.
let's say I drive up to Redacted and we go see the movie together.
Yeah.
Yo, do it.
Do that.
Vlog it,
And-
boys.
And we do some stuff with it.
I'm gonna see it with
The
Sarah.
opening night. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Well, there we
that
go. Then we split into two factions.
we should do that.
Fly
And
Chewie
converse
out
on
as
the movie.
well.
Yeah, come
Maybe
on,
we
come
should
on
just-
through.
Yeah, you know.
You guys just take a 12-hour flight across the ocean, and you know, it'll be great. We'll see it in the East Coast. But yeah, you know, like you said, April 7th. At this point, I'm just kind of ready for it to come out. You know, let's see what it is when it happens. The worst case scenario is a bad Mario movie, right? And we've all lived through that before, so I'm sure it will at least be, you know, enjoyable in like a morbid sense. All right, so we got a lot more to talk about, but before we do that, let me remind you that this episode of Nintendo Noise is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of January. They are, of course, Anthony Gonzalez, Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valens, Earth Visitor, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Asobi, Mary Berry, Matthew MQC, Ty the Dude, Wakahula, and Zaid Ida. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. Y'all are the realest of the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. Speaking of which, we've got a hot episode for you of our sister show, the Steam Deck Podcast. While I was out last week, Max and Steve did a very special episode on the question of should I buy a Steam Deck if I own a Nintendo Switch? And I know there are a lot of people that listen to this show, and it's the only show they listen to, or they listen to this and they don't listen to Steam Deck because they don't have a Steam Deck. Go check it out. I think this is a good resource for you, the Nintendo Switch owner who has thought about picking up a Steam Deck, of which I know there are many of you. You know, I've seen y'all talk about it. You know, so I think you should go give it a listen.
Yeah, it was a good episode. I can't remember what else we spoke about on it, but that was great. And while you're at it, you might as well check out the Flip Screen Games podcast, which was Max's hosting debut this week. And we spoke
Wow.
all about the Xbox
Don't clap
presentation, which was great.
Don't applaud it.
Look, Max, I'm taking the high road, right? Like you wanna like swing low. I'm gonna swing high.
No, yeah, but I'm saying
It wasn't a
it's not
slow
worthy.
clap, Max. It wasn't like
It wasn't like sarcastic.
No. I mean, it wasn't worthy of applause. So
Why? It was a good episode.
appreciate it. But
Self-
I got to
Deprecation.
speak about Hi-Fi Rush at great length.
Yeah.
And it's a phenomenal game.
I sometimes wake up in the night with sweats, remembering my second go at the intro where I just had to riff. Oh dear, it's bad. But that's fine. That's okay.
Max, look, you know what? It takes 10,000 hours. You'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
I have confidence, full confidence. And
I
then
saw a thing about that. It was they say it takes 10,000 hours to master anything. So
Right.
why can I still not sleep?
That's a great question. That's one for the ages. And then I'll also just give a quick plug. Make sure you tune in for the second episode of our Persona 5 Game Club, which will be going live this week. Apologies for the delay on that one. If you guys were looking for it last week, I had some personal issues that got in the way of the edit. So I apologize for that, but it will be ready for you this week. So keep your eyes peeled. It was a great episode. We had a really good time with it. So I hope you'll tune in. If you want to find links to that or all the other places you can find us all across the web, head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you can find links to everywhere we are, all the ways you can get involved, all the ways you can show your support, however you choose to do it. We thank you for tuning into this week's show. So let's talk Advance Wars, because there is a little bit of movement here. Both The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp have received NSUIDs. A game will usually get an NSUID when pre-orders are just about to go live. And then, of course, there's also the context that Amazon Mexico had just added Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp back to their website after it was removed in March of last year. I believe it showed up on a few other storefronts as well. I remember seeing some rumblings about that. I think even like non-Amazon storefronts, like I believe one of the international GameStop retailers had also posted about it. There's rumblings, right? Like, so I guess the question is, where there's
It's on Amazon UK again, so you can
There you
pre-order
go.
it. It's got a placeholder date of the 31st of December 2023 at the moment.
Okay. So I guess the
think-
question is if where there's smoke, is there fire?
I think this is the strongest evidence that Nintendo are ready to say something soon, because surely they're not going to allow people to pre-order Zelda without, here are the additions you can pre-order. Here's the season pass if they're doing one. Those are the things that you want to
The
pre-order.
special
They're not just
console
gonna-
that was spoke about.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we've
they're
seen
not
pictures of
just-
it.
We have ripped that apart on this show as well. I think that this is the strongest evidence that they're doing something. And if Advance Wars is part of that, I don't remember if we ever saw like a collector's edition of Advance Wars, but maybe they have like a special.
I don't believe
edition
so.
that's- No, they might have something. Who knows? And I think that if they're ready for people to pre-order this, they're going to talk about it just before they do. Personally, so yeah, that's where I sit on this one.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, to be honest. I think it seems about the time that we get a deep dive on Zelda at some point. Probably February or March, I would say, is around the time. It's due out in May. I think we need to see this
Yeah.
game at some point. We haven't seen any of the really gameplay of it.
And I mean, I think there's an interesting question there, right? Because a couple of weeks ago, I remember, I believe it was the episode it was you, me, and Sierra Max, where we talked about the special edition, and we talked about the marketing of Tears of the Kingdom.
We did. I remember this.
And I wonder how much they're going to show us. I agree with Max that I believe that it is time for them to talk about it again, and show a little bit more of it, and like talk about the console, and if there is going to be a season pass plan or any of those things that are like talking points marketing wise that they need to hit. Yeah, for sure. I wonder how much more of it we're going to see, because I think especially if Max's prediction slash theory is correct about the idea of Zelda being a playable character who they're not revealing now, and it's a thing that you'll find out during the course of the game. If you want to hear more about Max's theory, go check out our predictions episode on Flip Screen Games from 2 weeks ago. Great episode. I think that, to me, signals that we will probably not see a lot more of the game. And I wouldn't be surprised if it is going to be a marketing beat more similar to like what we saw with God of War, right? Where like really they're only showing us scraps of the first.
I could see that, but
Hour
even
and
with God of
change.
War, like we saw some of it. We saw press previews. Like it did go out ahead of release, and we did get like an extensive look at the gameplay and what had changed from the first
We
game.
did,
And I
but
think
we
we
saw a
knew
lot
some
less
the
of it than we
story
thought
beats.
we were seeing, though. You know?
That's fair, but like I feel like I've seen nothing. I don't really know the context of the story. I don't know why it's Tears of the Kingdom. I don't know what new game mechanics we can do other than the fact that we're in the sky a lot. Like
Yeah.
there is a lot that they can still show off, and I feel like we're due a direct on that. Even if they don't want to show the whole story, and they don't, and that's absolutely fine
Yeah.
because I don't really want them to. I think it would be nice if Zelda was a playable character. I don't think that's going to happen. I do think my prediction of Link dying is going to come true. There, I think that one.
How can
is,
both of those be true? How can Link die and not?
I think he can die and then come back to life. You know, I think that's absolutely fine.
He is
he
Jesus.
dies
That
and-
makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like this is possibly like I can't think of another game that, other than things like Hi-Fi Rush that are released and announced, where so little has been said. We've been waiting on this game for a long time, and
Yeah.
so little has been said or shown about it, and we're so close to launch. I can't think of another game where there's been this many questions about it 3 months out from launch, right?
Yeah.
Or 4 months out from launch, sorry. It's yeah, I think we're definitely due to see something. It's just whatever that consists of is the question. Also, I meant to say a minute ago. No, do you know what? I'll get back to that in a second. Carry on.
Okay. I think to lend credence to the idea of what Max is saying, that like an announcement of some kind, right, is imminent, or a presentation of some kind is imminent. Worth pointing out that Nintendo has often had a direct in February. That's a pretty common time for one. And then again, right, in the context of the story that we're going to get into in a minute here, with like Nintendo not showing up at E3, seemingly because they feel like they don't have enough to show. I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Given the context of what we know they have planned for this year and what we think is unlikely to happen this year, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it also depends when they're ready to show things, right? They might not be ready to show it on an E3 show floor, but they are ready to show it in a presentation around the summer. Just because they're skipping E3, and we'll get onto that in a second, they've said that they're skipping being on the show floor. That's like the report from IGN, is they're not going to be on the show floor.
Yeah.
And I think that's not the same as not having a presentation in the summer. They could easily have one with Jeff Keighley's event. They could have their own thing after all of that, like they did last year, where they revealed some things after the fact, after kind of all of the hype of the other games had settled down. I think we then saw Bayonetta, if I'm not mistaken. So I could see them revealing something in the summer. But if they haven't got a playable demo, they haven't got enough that they want to show off on the show floor, then it doesn't make financial sense for them to pay to have a ginormous booth at E3.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess you're right? Like, just because they won't have a presence on the floor doesn't mean they can't do a presentation, but I don't know. You know, like, it's an interesting question, because I think, you know, like when you think, so looking at what they have planned for this year, right? I found this article. This is from imore.com, and it's just like a list of like the big releases, quote unquote, that are coming. So it's a mix of first party and third party stuff. From the first party, right, we have Fire Emblem, which is already out. We have Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. We have Octopath Traveler 2, which isn't first party, but I would imagine them talking about that in a direct, right?
I don't know anymore, because that's cross-platform, so they could easily just be like, "Sod you, Square Enix, go do that on your own."
Maybe.
Where was it announced?
I believe it was announced at a Nintendo event,
wasn't it?
Oh,
was it? I thought it was announced at a Nintendo event, but you might be right.
I'm going to look it up.
So anyway, while you look that up, Bayonetta Origins, Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, Chibi Bayonetta. I forgot about
That's
that.
got to be imminent, right? Because I saw in a shop. I saw they were advertising.
It's coming out in March.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
It
It was Nintendo Direct. Game was first announced unless it was the September Direct in 2022.
There we go. That's
So
what I thought.
we could easily see that again this year.
Yeah.
As if it still comes out this year.
Which, like, it probably will, right? Like, I don't know why it wouldn't. Like, I feel like Square's, the smaller games, like, they come out on the time that they say they're going to 9 times out of 10. It seems that way anyway. I don't remember a delay. So then after...
for the last few of those smaller games, though, it's been that weird, like, oh, we're putting out a demo for people to trial it, and we're going to get feedback, and then we'll change the game based on what people say, which has always been strange to me.
Yeah, fair enough. But then after Tears of the Kingdom, not a lot, right? Like, we have Pikmin 4, but that doesn't have a firm release date. I don't think anyone would be surprised if that, dripped into next year or whatever. And it's like, aside from that, it's like a bunch of stuff that's coming to other platforms, and then like Super Bomberman R2, which cool.
God.
But and then like Hollow Knight Silksong, right? Heavily associated with Nintendo as well. But again, it's like there's not that much, but there's also definitely enough for that to be all they put out this year. Right? Like I don't think that would be a slow year by any sense.
I could see something else coming. Like, as much as I predicted there won't be a mainline Pokemon like game coming from Game Freak, I could see them having one from, I think it's Timmy is their studio that they've been partnering with to do the Chibi ones. I could see another remake coming out.
Yeah, they could do a Gen 5 remake.
Announced. Yeah, I could see that coming back half of this year. We've also got more DLC that they're going to continue to announce for Mario Kart that's going to keep coming through this year.
Yeah.
And I think we're probably ready to get the Game Boy stuff on NSO at some point. Like, we've seen the leaks of those emulators. They're going to have something to get people to re-up for their subs again for another year on the expansion pack. Why not check something in or do another big DLC like they did with Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
You can maybe do something that ties in with like Splatoon 3 and it's like a Splatoon 3 DLC, like
maybe even
like the Octoling thing.
Maybe even like Pokemon. I don't think Pokemon's DLC was announced until a bit after it was released, if memory serves. So like,
yeah, I'm pretty sure it was announced as part of the sort of like the March Pokemon Direct or the April Pokemon, whatever that.
I think you're right about that.
They have their own Pokemon Direct, don't they? Pokemon Presents, I think they call it.
Yes, that's
you're also forgetting Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is having a big story expansion.
That's true.
So it is,
Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was its own boxed separate thing, so I can see this being the same thing on this one.
Sure.
But that's all things that you necessarily couldn't show on a show floor, so it makes sense why they wouldn't be at E3 for those. But I think we could potentially see all of those in mini presentations of themselves. Not to mention all of the indie stuff that kind of gets picked, like dropped in between, or like a mini direct with third party stuff. Because I know Microsoft has got that new Minecraft Legends game. I think that's coming to
that is
Switch
coming to Switch as well.
The
Yeah,
Xbox. So that's coming. Don't know about what anyone else has got up their sleeves. I imagine there'll be something Monster Hunter coming to the Switch this year. There always seems to be something Monster Hunter related.
I think with Sunbreak last year, I think that's probably going to be it for Monster Hunter for a while.
Yeah.
I think they're going to focus on getting Sunbreak out for the if it's not already out for the other consoles, maybe. One thing I've just remembered in terms for Advance Wars specifically. I know we're not talking about. Have we moved on to E3 now? I can't remember.
We're like right on the borderline of it. So if you have a thing,
before we move on, I don't want to move on yet. No. But before we do, I just went on the eShop, and Advance Wars is now on the pre-order page when you go to the eShop.
Okay,
cool.
Pretty good.
There we go. So Advance Wars was delayed for the same reason that GoldenEye was delayed, and that is Russia, the sort of the Russia-Ukraine thing. That was specifically mentioned for Advance Wars. Wasn't mentioned for GoldenEye. That was the case. Now that GoldenEye has released, I guess maybe that some companies are seeing, things they may have delayed and pushed back for that reason are now maybe fairer to release, as we've seen with GoldenEye, and maybe that's why we're seeing Advance Wars appear now.
I think at this point they're safe, right? Like if they were to put it out, it wouldn't be controversial. There wouldn't be people being like, "Can't believe Nintendo's putting out a game about war," right? Like it's
now's not the time, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a company that's like so cautionary that they didn't show that trailer live for Tears of the Kingdom in the UK because the Queen had died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they are, they want to avoid controversy as much as possible, right? Which fair enough. So yeah, it's we'll jump into the E3 bit of it here, and then we can rewind if we want to pull in the Advance Wars and kind of the broader release schedule, because I think that's an interesting wrinkle here, right? Is like, if Nintendo isn't going to be at E3, why? And what else are they going to do, right? How are they going to communicate with us? Directs, obviously, but when, right? And how many, and what do they have to talk about? I think there's a broader story here that's pretty interesting. So we'll, to give you the context, right? This story pops off earlier today. IGN had an exclusive that Xbox, Nintendo, and Sony will all not be a part of E3 2023. So just to this is a direct quote from them, right? They said, IGN is told from multiple knowledgeable sources that Xbox, Sony, and Nintendo won't be a part of E3 2023 or have a presence on the LA Convention Center show floor. So that, Steve, sounds like it's all-encompassing, right? Like it's like they're saying they won't be a part of it or have a presence on the floor. That feels like they won't have a direct.
Yeah, but what is a part of it? Because like Microsoft wasn't a part of E3 or the
They were part of E3, but they weren't part of the show floor because they were.
No. But like last year, I think they weren't part of E3 or Summer Games Fest, or was it the year before? And they were sort of part of both at the same time. But it was just basically their own presentation. They just wanted people to be able to see it. I don't think you necessarily need to be a part of E3. And I think Nintendo's just like, well, why would we pay E3 money to use the E3 branding that no one really cares about because they're here to watch a Nintendo Direct about our big games? So what's the point?
I think that's a huge leap, dude. Like, I mean, to clarify, Xbox was part of E3 at the last E3 event, but they had it in the Microsoft theater, right? So it was in like the next door. So like they were a partner of E3, but they were not a part of the show floor, right? I think.
Well, the show floor didn't exist then, right? It was a whole digital event at that point,
right? But they did have journalists in attendance, right? It wasn't the public. So yeah, it's like with Nintendo, right? Like they've always had a booth at E3, right? Like this would be the first E3 that they hadn't attended. And they've always been one of the biggest parts of the show floor.
People think that Nintendo, or people often say Nintendo hasn't been at E3 for years because they've been doing Nintendo Directs, but people only see E3 as the streams for some reason, or the conferences. But a large part of E3 is, especially for the press and especially for the people who are putting on the show, the exhibitors, is the show floor, because that's where people play the games, that's where they get their first impressions, that's where they have all their meetings. That's where they have a bigger marketing push, I would say, on that floor for the people that are there and the journalists than just doing the live streams and the presentations. So I think to say that Nintendo hasn't done E3 or that they're not a part of E3 just because they do directs, isn't correct. But I think Steve's right in that it's not worth the money for them to do it if they, one, don't have anything to show, and two, if they've sort of just not prepared to do
right.
it.
And I think that's the thing, right? Is like the some of the reports we're hearing, right, is that like that's the reason, right? Like there's another report that came out after IGN's from Video Games Chronicle, and they said, according to VGC's publishing sources with knowledge of Nintendo's plans, the company has decided to skip E3 2023, the event's first physical show in 4 years, because it feels it has fewer major releases than usual ready to show, and which would justify significant event space. Which...
Yeah, because I think the last event they were at was the Animal Crossing one. And I remember the giant Animal Crossing thing that they had to show. They don't have a huge game that's not going to be coming out before E3.
Yeah, because Tears of the Kingdom will be out by the time E3 happens.
If Zelda was coming out in September, then maybe it makes sense to be there and show it off and have a playable demo and show people.
Do what they did with Breath of the Wild. Make that like the big thing that they show, right? Like make the entire focus that one game, But
I don't necessarily think that I don't necessarily agree anymore, Max, that this is where like the press go. Like they haven't had a physical space in 4 years. It was. I just don't think that's how the press interact with publishing companies anymore.
Yeah, I also think when E3 opened up to the public, that sort of changed things as well, because it became, journalists got less time to have this specific time with the game. They would end up just having to queue up, and it became maybe more of a meeting place and a place to have interviews and stuff. But I think
that's not totally true. My understanding is that they still got appointments. It would just be you would make an appointment to go play a game. You wouldn't have to like wait in line with the public. Journalists still had preferential access.
That's similar to how Repop do their other shows. Like
That's
I know
how,
EGX, you can do that.
EGX
right?
works.
Yeah, or like they own New York Comic Con, right? And it's like I've worked New York Comic Con as a member of the press before, and like they have the show floor, which is like for people who are attending the event, right? And it's like you buy swag, you go to panels, you play games, whatever. And then the press area is elsewhere, and the journalists have a different level of access to people. But yeah, I mean, I think you're probably right, where it's like, especially if they don't have anything to show, it seems insane to pay to own floor space at an event that you're not sure is going to be as ubiquitous as it once was, right? Like,
Yeah.
E3
it definitely isn't as ubiquitous as it once was. I don't think. Like,
no.
what's the draw if the three big platform holders on there?
And I think
why would you go to E3?
I think that's the thing now, right? Is like I think if we were having this conversation like 2 weeks ago before this report happened, I definitely wouldn't have agreed with you that like the E3 branding isn't worth anything. Because I think you can compare the numbers that Summer Games Fest does to the biggest years of E3, and it's like, okay, like it's different.
Yeah,
right?
but compare, say, the Game Awards to E3, and I think you're getting up to similar levels at that point.
Yeah.
And I think
Summer Games Fest is new, right? Like it's not.
There's always been events that happen in like E3 vicinity. Like the Bethesda B3 thing was never part of E3. It was like their own separate thing.
That's
EA
not true.
Play was always like a
Bethesda was an
EA
E3
Play was
partner.
like a separate thing, right?
EA Play was a separate thing. Bethesda was a partner though.
People still tuned in to watch those,
Mhm.
and I think people would still tune in to watch a Nintendo Direct because they tune in anyway, and the hype is mega whenever they announce that they're gonna show anything.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So if you don't need the physical space and you can already do presentations and get the hype anyway just by dropping a link on a tweet, why would you spend all that money
I think
to
literally
have E3's branding on it?
it would be if you had games to show, right? If you had games that you wanted the public to play, and if they don't
Yeah.
have those, which it doesn't seem like they do, right? Like, because it's like, again, right? You look at this list of games, and it's like Fire Emblem's already out, Kirby.
Yeah, they've got those games that we know about, right? But there are games that they're working on in development. There's Pikmin 4, there's Metroid Prime 4. Like they could have had something ready of those games.
But like, are those ready
like
to be hands on, like on an E3
Yeah,
show
that's
floor?
the
And it's
problem.
like probably not. Like I think if they were, they would think about it, right? But again, right, it's like all of the big games this year from them that we like know are coming are going to be out by the time E3 happens. Tears of the Kingdom will be a recent release. It's May 12th, right? And like E3's in June. And it's like the lower you get on this list, it's like, okay, I don't know that I believe Pikmin 4 is coming out this year. Like it might, right? Like, it's been in development for so long. Why would they say it was coming out if it wasn't? Okay. But we don't know. And then Advance Wars, again, right, is like currently unconfirmed.
Mhm.
And what else is on that list that you want to get hands on with, right? And you mentioned Metroid, but like we frankly have no idea where Metroid is in its development. They were hiring significant leadership positions on that
4 years
game
ago.
like last year.
It's 4 years ago this month that the reboot happened.
Don't
Um,
I bloody know it?
And it's sad because 4 years ago they started from scratch essentially. So I don't know how long a AAA game takes to make. I think it is within the vicinity of like 4 to 6 years. So maybe they're coming up on ready to show us something. But whether it's a playable demo, whether they're holding off to use that as like a game to launch the next Switch, that could be the one that they use.
But
as,
you also
like,
have to
the
think, right?
catalyst.
That assumes, and I think you're probably right about that, about it maybe being like a cross-generational thing, because like Zelda's not going to be able to do that. But it's interesting. You think about it, like 4 years is when they made the announcement, right? It's like, well, how far into development were they when they announced that, right? Because it's like, did they announce that immediately after they canceled the game and decided to give it to Platinum, right? Because
that would have.
Because if that happened, right, I think you're right, it didn't. But if it did,
it went to retro, not platinum. Right?
Sorry, that's what I meant. Retro. Yeah, I don't know why I pulled platinum.
However, that would be pretty. I'd play that.
I'd rather have Tango have it now. They know how to make it actually.
Steve, I love that you also don't like platinum games. But yeah, I don't know. Like the idea that it took a year, let's say, from the announcement of that game for them to like. Because they were apparently working on something else, right? So they had to like cancel and wind down that game, and then
it was meant to be that Star Fox
racing
thing,
game that
wasn't it?
maybe existed. Who knows? And then like potentially hire new people, right? Like again, there was a job listing from them a year ago for like somebody in a leadership position on this game. So like, I don't know, dude. Like it took them like 6 years to make Breath of the Wild, right? Like. I don't know. Like they might have something to show us, or we might be a solid year or two away before having even a trailer. And I think considering it was such a public failure, they're not going to say a fucking thing until they are ready to show it, and they are confident it's going to come out. And I think because of that, we'll probably see it later than we would have otherwise.
Yeah, I know. It's really sad. It's really upsetting. But for me, it feels like maybe this makes sense. It's like the end of a generation. Do you remember that final E3 presentation that Sony did? The really weird one where they started out in this like room that was like a church, and then they all funneled
in like
everyone
four
into,
different buildings. Yeah,
that's like four. Yeah, and they had like 2 games to show that no one really cared about anything other than The Last of Us Part 2. It was just like, cool.
Bite
The
your
Last of Us Part
tongue.
2.
One of those games was Ghost of Tsushima.
Okay, fair enough. But like, it feels like maybe we're at that. It's just like we're at the end of the generation. We know what's coming. It's time to see the next hot thing. Maybe later this year. Who knows?
What the fuck were the other games?
I think Gran Turismo was announced at that point. Maybe.
I'm pretty sure if I remember,
it was Last of Us Part 2. It was Ghost of Tsushima. It was Control, and then it was.
Well, Control was
sure
announced.
There was a car game,
and then Death Stranding. Oh no. Okay, never mind. They didn't. You're right. That was one of the ones they showed, but it wasn't one of their big focus games. Because I think Spider-Man was the 4th one.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
These were great games, Steve. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I know, but it's like it was the last thing, right? It was 4 games.
Yeah. That presentation gets too much flack,
any...
all right? Nintendo just showed Breath of the Wild in 2017, and everyone's like, oh, Sony only has 4 games. Come on. All right, relax.
Bang in.
Relax.
Who won?
So, we kind of touched on this in a second ago, but I guess the question I have here is twofold that I want to turn over to you two. Do you think that this lines up with the previous rumors that we've heard, specifically from Andy Robinson, who's the EIC of Video Games Chronicle, who said that there will be no major releases from Nintendo after Tears of the Kingdom? And then my second question is, do you believe that Xbox, Nintendo, and PlayStation not attending the event means that E3 is DOA, right? Like, is there enough from the third-party publishers that we know are going to have a presence?
Who do we know is going to be there?
It's a short list, my guy. I'll look it up while you answer the question.
So the issue I have is that since Bethesda was absorbed by Microsoft, that you just lose a big show. But Bethesda was always quite a big show by itself when they started doing it.
You lose 2, right? It's like that and Xbox are gone. That's actually 4 big presentations that are pulling out.
That presentation's going ahead, though, by the way. So they are having a summer presentation that has been confirmed by Xbox.
Right.
Whether it's part of E3 or not, they're not going to be on the show floor. We don't know if they're going to say it's part of E3, if it's just going to happen in the same week as E3. It might be the week of Summer Game Fest. We don't know what day it's going to be.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think that E3 can. I think that if you were to look at, I'm sure if you were to look at the presentations and you looked at the few numbers, you would see those 3 have the highest, and then you've got Ubisoft. Generally, probably won't do too well because people know what's coming from Ubisoft normally. And then
it's often the weakest one anyway, too, right? Like that's almost always the weakest conference.
Yeah, they have the Just Dance dance-off amongst the whole crowd.
We see Skull and Bones for the 700th time, and it's never coming out.
Or you end up with like the Square Enix presentation, which is always just like an awful slideshow, just a mishmash of like people who care about Square Enix, they like watching it.
Because they give their big
Japanese
announcements
stuff
to like other companies. It's just like, oh, you want to announce Final Fantasy? Weird. Sure thing, Sony. Here you go. It's just like, why?
People who are like diehard Square Enix fans are Square Enix fans because they like the Japanese stuff, they like the RPGs, they like the Final Fantasy stuff. They love all of that. That's why they like it. But they give all those announcements to Nintendo and Sony, and all the Square Enix presentations are just like, here's more Tomb Raider. Here's like, and then it's just all the here's the Avengers. Here's a big update on that, and it's just all the Western stuff that they've now sold off anyway. So I highly doubt anyone would tune in for any Square Enix presentation, and I genuinely am struggling to think of any more people who show up to E3 and do presentations.
What about all of like Devolver? Do they go there? That was a kind of
No,
adjacent thing as well,
did.
wasn't it?
Their thing was they would do their presentation in the parking lot across the street from the E3 convention
yeah.
center in a tent.
Yeah.
So I'm
I
looking
mean,
at this.
I wonder if you need any of it with Reed Pop doing the event. They could do other things, like because they managed to do EGX with and like PAX without these big attendees.
Yeah, but that's not what those things are, right? Like I think those are very, very different. And like, don't get me wrong, could E3 evolve and become that? Sure, but
I think it's gonna have to at this point because like, what else are they gonna have this year?
I don't know.
If they even go through with the event, if this is true, they might just say it's really not worth us having an event, spending all this money on something that's not going to pull the same number of people because, the three biggest people who, when you look back at like Space World in the early E3s,
Yeah.
it was just Nintendo, Sony, Sega, for example, at one point, I guess, but it was just those three. It was pretty rare that you had presentation of other people. It's only recently where you've been able to do digital presentations that's become affordable and feasible for companies.
I mean,
like
E3 was
Devolver
a
to come
trade
in and
show,
do something.
right? It was a trade
Exactly.
show. Like the point of the show was even like originally, right, was less about talking to journalists and more about like talking to like managers of Best Buy and stuff, right? To be like, you need to pick up a PlayStation because it's going to be the hot new console, right? Like that was really the purpose.
Yeah, they already know that now.
Right,
Like
right.
we know who you are.
Yeah, it's a different world than it used to be, and I think E3 served a vital purpose for many years, and like you hear from indie developers, right? You like a famous example is if you've read Jason Schreier's book is like the team behind Enter the Gungeon, right? Where like they were devs who had worked on these big games. They went independent. They're making this game on their own. They don't have a publisher. They need a partner. They send one member of their team. They can only afford to send one guy to E3, and he's walking around with a laptop trying to get people to play his game. And that's how they got connected with Devolver. And it's like that's one of the big indie success stories of the last couple of years, right? Is like is that, right? And it all hinged on a small studio being able to attend an E3 and be able to get in front of the right people. There are a lot of stories like that, right? And it's a shame to think that might go away because the larger machine that needs to exist to make E3 what it is and make it profitable is moving in a different direction, But I think you're probably right. Like, I have a hard time imagining, like, what does E3 even look like if we don't have a Nintendo Direct, we don't have the PlayStation event, we don't have the Xbox event, and again, now we don't have.
But those events are all going to happen. I really
no,
think
but that's not what I'm saying.
Well, we know we're going to get the Xbox thing.
But I'm not saying that they won't happen. I'm saying that they won't be a part of E3. So my question is, what is E3 then? Right? Like, if it's not.
It can go back to. I guess it never was the glitzy presentations. They came out. They can't, like, as you said, it was originally a trade show. We go here, we have our booth, people come in, they have a look around.
Yeah, it's not what it is anymore,
The presentations like evolved out of that, and I think it needs to evolve again into a consumer-centric show, like all of the other events that the Repop produces. I think that's what it's going to have to if the ESA want it to survive.
Well, I mean, does the ESA even exist anymore? Right? Like, didn't they sell it to Repop?
They own E3.
I thought they sold the brand to Repop. Okay. Yeah, I don't know, dude. Like, it could evolve into a consumer show and be successful, but I think that then it's like, what makes a difference than a PAX or whatever, right? And it's like, the answer is probably nothing. But then so what? Right? Like, it's like, okay, so it's just another PAX West, it's another Comic-Con, it's whatever, right? And it's like, all right, like, I guess.
Sometimes that's enough. I don't know. And they could also
it's just
be
like, do we need another
other
one,
people
though?
there.
Yeah, and I guess that's going to be the question is like, what do they do to fill in the blanks? Like if they don't have these big presentations to anchor it, and like, what do they do to make journalists show up and talk about it? What do they do to incentivize, the average person to show up? Because, for me, right, I've always wanted to go to E3, but if I can't go and sit and watch the presentation, right, or play any of the games that I'm looking forward to, then why am I there?
Just go the week before to Jeff's play days, and you can go play the games that he has at his presentation.
And that's a huge question too, right? Is if all these people are at Summer Games Fest and like the IGNs and GameSpots and whatever's of the world, send people out. What are they going to stay there for 2 weeks and go to E3 after they were just at Summer Game Fest? and none of the big dogs are
Sure.
at E3. It's like, I don't know, dude.
I guess that would be the plan. I mean, Repop own Eurogamer, so I would imagine they'll just send people out from them, and then you just like IGN's already there, so
Yeah, they're
gonna be
local.
covering both.
But I don't know though, dude. Like, I mean, I think to your point, if they can partner with like indie publishers, if they could get Annapurna, if they could get, Devolver,
Just get Embracer to bring their 7 million publishing arms along, and you'll be fine.
And it's like
You'll have
maybe
something to share.
and maybe that's enough, right? Maybe they can replace it with new presentations, and the Nintendos, Xbox, PlayStations of the world are too big to need an E3 anymore. They're too big to need Summer Games Fest, so they won't. But like smaller groups, they'll benefit from that extra attention, right? Those eyes in a way that like Xbox,
Depends if
PlayStation.
these people see, or it could, like, it depends if the publishers have a demo they want to show on a show floor. If they feel that the show floor is beneficial to them,
But it's also
or
like
just being in a presentation is beneficial, they just pay Jeff
yeah,
a few grand and be in his presentation and show you a trailer there instead, and people are going to tune in.
also like not for nothing, like. Does Jeff charge to be a part of Summer Games Fest? I've never heard anyone talk about that, right? Like with,
I've never heard any.
E3, you paid to be on the show floor, right? So like you paid to have a presentation.
As far as I'm aware, he
Surely-
charges to be a part of Summer Game Fest and the Game Awards.
Okay.
Yeah, why would he put it on if he wasn't getting fat stacks? I know there's advertising, but surely advertising's not enough.
That's the question, right? Is like my understanding is like, well, I don't know that it's funded that way, right? It's like I know they sell ads and that's a huge part of their revenue stream, right? And they partner with all these different organizations. I wouldn't be surprised if like Valve, right, paid to be a sponsor to give away Steam Decks, for example, but it's like, if Nintendo wants to show a trailer at the Game Awards, like, are they paying to do that, or is Jeff happy to have the trailer, right? Because that gives attention to his show. I'm not sure how that works out. I've never seen him talk about it.
The only data I've got on it is from NME from last year, where it was a tweet. Someone posted the figures for opening night live at Gamescom. So I know Jeff is a part of it. He doesn't own that, but.
Opening Night Live, he produces the whole thing, though, I believe, right? He doesn't own Gamescom, obviously, but...
No, but for a 30-second spot on Opening Night Live, it costs 85,000 euros. For 120 seconds, it's 210,000
But what does that mean? A 30-second spot, is that an ad? Because, like...
Trailer.
Okay. Because that's different, right? Like, because there are ads during those events that are like, this isn't an announcement, this is an ad, right? Like Nintendo had an ad during the Game Awards where it's just like, fucking buy a Nintendo Switch, here's games that are on it, right? Like, that's different than, here's the Smash reveal trailer, right? But, okay.
Yeah, and maybe he doesn't charge, his friends who are the big people that are drawing in the crowd.
Who are, like, doing him a favor, right? By being, from
oh,
software.
Here's Elden Ring.
Yeah, right, like,
he's like, oh, you have a huge game? That's a shame. You've got to give me $100,000 to show off your new game. I'm sorry about that.
Especially when they could do it themselves, right? Like they don't need Summer Game Fest.
It's probably a balancing act, right? He can prove that. Oh, at the Game Awards, we pulled in millions and millions and millions of people watching us.
I would imagine he probably this is total speculation, right? But I wouldn't be surprised if the answer was, if it's a game that I think people will want to see, it's free. And if not, you can pay to be in it,
Yeah. I mean, that's how I would price it, It's just like, oh, this would be, you're doing me a favor, right? Like last year at the Summer Game Fest, the big thing was like The Last of Us reveal at the end, part 1. And, I can imagine just having Sony there. I can't imagine he would have charged it because they had their own presentation anyway and slapped their logo on it. And, it's just like, fair enough. But they kept that one thing for Jeff's show.
So to take it back to the question about the release schedule, where are you at with that? Do you think we don't see anything in the back half of the year? Because like I wouldn't be surprised by that. Like I think if Nintendo gets to the end of the year and the only like quote unquote major releases they have in the conversation are the follow up to Breath of the Wild, Fire Emblem Engage, and
I could see it. Yeah, I could see
a couple of these smaller releases.
See DLC just being the thing that they're stacking the year with. Chuck in the Xenoblade DLC, give us some more Mario Kart DLC. Maybe there's a Mario Party DLC finally. maybe we see the first Tears of the Kingdom DLC pack.
Because
But there's a lot they could do.
I wouldn't be surprised if they can ride the Tears of the Kingdom thing like all year, right? Like we saw that with Breath of the Wild. Like I don't know, and it's like
no, because 2017 had so many big releases.
Had Odyssey as well.
Had
That's
Odyssey.
true.
It had
Splatoon 2.
Sorry.
Splatoon 2.
To clarify,
Mario
what I
Kart
meant by
8.
that is not that they only put that out that year, but that game sold through that year, right? Like that game consistently has sold well over time. And maybe they're banking on the fact that the sequel to the most successful game in one of our biggest franchises, I would say probably a console-defining game, right?
Well, we know that Nintendo are ramping up their production this year. I think we heard that maybe 2 weeks ago or last
Yeah.
week that they are putting in, they're if anything making more Switches in a year where it seems like they're not really releasing a lot. So they must have something planned for that. And whether that
Loads.
is
My guess is, Max, absolutely shitloads of special editions to use up the stock.
Yeah.
Parts that they've got, which is exactly what they did with the 2DS, and like we ended up with 1,000 2DS XLs.
Right.
Mhm.
And it's like, could this be the year we get a price cut? Right? Ramping up towards new hardware. Let's make the Switch more affordable. Let's get one last huge push for the holiday Black Friday season, right? With this brand new game with a special edition OLED Switch. Like
I'm still of the opinion that they keep the Switch, the current Switch, around for a while, even when they release the next one.
No, for
And
sure,
just
but you'd
reduce
want to
the
do a price cut,
yeah.
right? Like you'd want to do a
Yeah,
price
but I
cut
think that's
alongside
when they do the
new
price cut.
unit.
Is when they do the new one, and I don't think we're going to see the new one this year.
I think they will talk about it this year. I don't think we'll see it, but I imagine, like, you remember like what happened with the Switch, where it was the NX, and they talked about we're working on our next console, and we're going to
but I really think that didn't matter for the Wii U because the sales were shit anyway.
For
But
sure,
when it
for
comes
sure.
to the Switch, it's like, do you want to cannibalize your holiday sales when people know a new one's around the corner? I don't think you do. I don't think you talk about it until you're ready to have something fresh.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
For holiday.
I could see it being at the Game Awards, like in December, being like, hey, like,
Yeah, it's
what's
possible at
next
the
for
Game Awards,
Nintendo
yeah.
is next. We're going to talk about it next year, right? At that point, everybody's already bought their Switch for the holiday. But you might be right. You might be right that maybe they just wait until early next year and like don't even.
Yeah, you wait till February and do like here's the new thing, and it's coming out in April with Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah, right. It's interesting because like I think you brought up the Wii U before, right? And I wasn't even thinking about the Wii U as much as I was thinking about like the 3DS, which was still healthy and selling at the time that they did that. It's like obviously different now because it's not. There isn't a competing SKU. This is the SKU, and it's still extremely successful, right? So like, why pull up now?
Yeah, I don't think they can. It would really jeopardize their holiday sales, and if they're being bullish on their production, as Max said, and ramping it up, it means they think they're going to sell more going in probably to next April. I think is when their financial year ends.
So, if you gotta plant your flag, right? What do we think's happening? You think? Because I'm thinking maybe we get presentation in February or March, and then another one somewhere in the summer, and then that's probably it.
There'll be a June or July one, and then I think we'll probably get some indie ones or mini ones, or maybe ones focusing on specific games. Like, we're going to show you a presentation all about the DLC for Pokemon, all about the DLC for or Pikmin, because we don't know anything about it. I think that's probably going to be the big summer announcement. It's just like, here's Pikmin, and it's coming out in November.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did the thing where like, here's our big summer direct. Here's a bit about Pikmin 4. We'll have a Pikmin 4 focused direct coming next month or like 2 months from whatever. And then like that's the last big thing.
I have a feeling we're going to see something in September again, just because it seems to be something they do is sort of in September they sort of update on whatever's happening at the end of the year, and then maybe sort of some stuff to kick off the next year. So
that's the time when everyone's NSO subs are due for renewal as well. So it's like
maybe that's where we get the Game Boy announcement, right?
Yeah,
that makes sense. I think aside from that, though, I really would not be surprised if they don't have other cards to play because like that's a solid lineup. You know, like it's just as good as what they had this year, at least, right? And I'd say it's a lot better. Having Tears of the Kingdom,
yeah,
like, that's a Game of the Year contender. right? Like,
Yeah, you haven't got two giant Pokemon games though in the same year, which probably sell a shed load more than Tears of the Kingdom is going to sell. Tears of the Kingdom sold 27 million copies in total on the Switch.
Breath of the Wild, you mean?
Yeah, that's it. So, and that's in 6 years. So,
whereas like Scarlet and Violet already hit what, like 14 or something already. Like it's an insanely high number in a couple weeks. Yeah. All right, so the last thing we're going to talk about here before we split is what's up with that prediction, boys? Think I'm getting those risky pick points? Because I'm feeling like I'm getting them risky pick points. That's what it feels like.
I think you've got to demonstrate how they have higher viewing figures than E3. And I said this when you picked.
No, I don't. The judge has to. That's what we agreed.
Yeah, the judge has to.
No.
Yeah, that's what we agreed to. I can pull up the clip, motherfucker.
I remember you. Okay, here we are. I remember you saying that you would provide the data. It's the judge.
And the judge will make the call.
To make the call, but
you've got to get that data for us, and I don't know how you're going to do
Easily
that.
Easily observable.
I look forward to seeing what happens.
Because E3 has never had like an E3 channel where it's only on the E3 channel. It's like simulcasted on like IGN and GameSpot. It's like everywhere. So like,
I look forward to seeing the work he's going for these 2 points. Also, I look forward to E3 potentially being cancelled and this being completely null and void.
No, because that's up to the judge. Because if E3 doesn't happen, it gets more views than E3. I didn't say that it had to happen.
Yeah, more views than E3. If E3 doesn't happen, there's no views to calculate.
0 is still a number.
I can see arguments on both sides.
Zero. It's funny. When I brought this up today, I was like, oh shit, I might get these points. And Sarah was like, what happens if it doesn't happen? And I was like, that's up to the judge, but I'm going to lobby for that shit. Because 0 is still a number, motherfucker.
I have 11 months to come up with my arguments.
Yeah, you got some time.
And look what I can do on 30 seconds, Pete. Watch this.
Just remember, Max, that he was very generous to you and let you up your Forspoken Metacritic score to 80.
That's
all I'll say.
Like I'm such a gracious fucking competitor here, and you guys just try to claw me down. You know?
Didn't need it.
You didn't.
So
you didn't. But I gave it to you.
I think we can. Do you know, I think we could probably just put a red in Max's risky pick, though, after this conversation, which was Metroid Prime 4 will be released in 2023.
Don't put reds based on theories and discussion. Put reds based on facts. Let's patiently wait.
I guess it could be a shadow drop at, the Summer Game Fest or wherever they are.
I'll tell you what, that would be insane if they come out in, like, the summer or whatever, and they're like, Metroid Prime is later this year, right? And I
think it would be cool if it was like on that day. It's like, go download it from the eShop right now.
They're not gonna do that shit though.
No, they're not, because they want their box copies in stores. But it would be really cool if they did that.
Yeah, and it's also like, obviously there's been a lot of conversation about that with like Hi-Fi Rush doing that this week, but like there are so few games that can get away with that. Like you gotta have. I think that works because it's like, cool, this is during an Xbox event and you can go play it on Game Pass right now for free, right? Whereas like...
Yeah, but it wasn't even on Game Pass. That was like where the sales were. It was on Steam. That's the crazy thing about it. It's like, it like was top of the charts on Steam. It overtook Forspoken and like had zero marketing whatsoever. No one even knew about the game.
Yeah. Just word of mouth, right? It's hot.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, right?
It
makes it easy to get in the door when it's like, oh, people can jump on and play it on Game Pass, and they're like, holy shit, this game's incredible. Like, what the hell? And then everyone's like, oh, great, I'll go buy it on Steam.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, that wouldn't work for Metroid, right? Like, Metroid comes out, and you're like, oh, shit, I didn't budget for this. Okay. I guess I'll, not that people wouldn't flock to it, but I don't know that it's as easy to replicate that success as I think people would like to think, because it's like, oh, look, this is such a creative way to announce your game. And it's like, yeah, but there are marketing like cycles for a reason,
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
We will. Anyway, this is a good one. Good show today, boys. Good work. Real proud of everybody. Just nailed it. You nailed it all around. Golf claps.
I'll take that clap.
There we go. There we go. Good work, everybody.
That was sincere.
My dad will appreciate that.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Nintendo Noise. If you want to write in with your thoughts on the demise of E3, Nintendo's marketing plans for the rest of the year, what other games you think might make it to market, or that you might hope make it to market from Nintendo this year, definitely write in and let us know. I am very excited to see what Nintendo does this year because I think this is potentially going to be the first big one for them in a while. So it's pretty exciting to be knee deep in Engage right now and actively enjoying it. And we have Tears of the Kingdom right around the corner. So I'm very excited to put some more time in with my Switch this year. So I hope Nintendo is ready to wow us. So make sure you write in with your thoughts. That's questions@flipscreen.games, or head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you can find links to the Discord. Come get involved, have the conversation. Keep on rolling between the episodes. And of course, like I said, write into the show, get involved, however you choose to show your support. We greatly appreciate you. If you want to find links to all the ways you can get involved, flipscreen.games is our website. Go head over there and go click on some stuff. It helps us out a lot. So, for the crew, I've been Pete. He's been Max. He's been Steve. We'll see you next week for another episode of Nintendo Noise, baby!
What's the opposite of ahoy?
Bahoy.
Ahoy.
Bye-bye. Boy. Okay. Anyway, see you next week.